Greetings. Welcome to the Dwemhar Realms. I'm the author, JT Williams. This will be the first video that's not an audiobook since I began to put focus in on providing these audiobooks free of charge to anyone that will listen. Wow, that actually kind of sounds desperate. But more so, it's that I want to give you an escapism to a world that many have found through my ebooks, through Amazon Kindle, and uh, now wide to many other retailers, and also from my direct store. But some just like to listen, and that's fine. At the time of this video, I've written nearly 50 titles in the Dwemhar Realms universe, including the Stormborn Saga, the Rogue Elf, and the Fallen Dwarf, among many others. As promised, I've begun diving into the lore of the realms, and I figured we'd start off with some rather basic stuff today. So, I'll cover the creation of the universe and the major races. If you're brand new to this channel, obviously please subscribe, like this video and others. I have numerous audiobooks available, including the Fallen Dwarf series and some from the Stormborn saga. I've uploaded several of my shorter stories and novellas, and I'm working on getting others. If there is a particular ebook or whatnot that you have seen that you'd like to perhaps hear here, let me know. The creation of the realms. In the beginning, there was nothingness, no light, no sound, until in the vibrations of waking consciousness came a single tone. It was a resonance like no other, flowing in the weaving nothingness until it twisted within itself, becoming that which would sing the world into existence. The early world was a brilliant display of light and darkness, song and chaos. Then, in a single change of music, that who would be Aruda, the great poet, the creator of all to come, awakened upon the shores of a barren sea. It was at this time this creation of music became aware of itself, and in strokes of ethereal brushes crafted a world to both create and contain the vibrations of the universe that surrounded Garuda. The realms spun around like notes within a melody, slamming into one another to form new elements of stone and fire, and upon the oceans there were great rifts that connected the many realms. From Aruda's place on the shore, the many realms became as one, forming eon gateways, doorways of spirit and souls. And as the melody permeated the realms, soon came life upon all realms, no matter their element or constitution. Aruda made others in his own likeness, forming from the elements that which would become masters of the realms, the gods of the realms. And to each of these gods, Aruda gifted power over elements in creation, entrusting them to create newness in the world. Further, Aruda, the great poet, formed up the dwarves to tend to the great mountains of the land, the elves to watch over all life upon the rocks of the world, and the Rusas to command the elements, bringing balance to the fires, ice, and electrical charges that brought all life together. Then, in a final act, the Dwemhar race formed from the rogue souls who had not been crafted into the other races. These were those that were blessed with a unique gift of the mind, a strong and potent force that was like nothing else in existence. It was with all this the great poet entrusted the world that was created and fell fast asleep, entrusting the creation to continue to weave new songs into existence and grow that which they were given.
So now we'll talk about the major races. You have the elves, the dwarves, the Rusas, and the Dwemhar. And to save time and not waste your time, I'll say that dwarves are about what you expect. They enjoy their ale, mining, swinging heavy things, and have a issue with the elves. Now, there's deeper issues than simply saying they have issues, of course. But there have been very few times where the dwarves and elves have stopped fighting each other long enough to fight an outer foe. But there, of course, were the Orc Wars, where elves and dwarves came together to fight a greater foe. And then there was the rather small issue of the Necromancer Wars. Yes, I paused it like that because the race of men was nearly extinguished, and it wasn't really a war for them, it was annihilation. They dwelt in the sunken lands of the south, and it was the elves and dwarves that eventually were able to capture this rogue goddess that could cause all the trouble. But for the most part, dwarves and elves are as you expect them. The first of the primary races that are quite a bit different are the Rusus. Now, the Rusus race has a innate magical ability, the ability to cast different elements, fire, ice, and whatnot. They, of course, must practice and build up their stamina with such abilities. But their civilization as a whole pretty much stayed focused to a region known as the Kiva Mountains. There should be an image of the mountains up there now. But as you can see, they were fairly isolated from others, at least at this point in history. They had a love of science and the natural world, learning how elements and things interacted. But it was the other race, the Dwemhar, that though they should have gotten along, they didn't. Now, the Dwemhar race in my world is based on Vedic myth, where I twist it with Atlantean myths. Now, in this particular case, the Dwemhar race are highly potent psionic individuals. They use meditation. And one might say they're similar to Jedi in some form, but I hate that ease of term. Many Dwemhar must practice simply meditating to unlock any of their powers. Though you'll see in other books like the Rogue Elf, where some characters gain the ability to simply focus and cause aneurysms in the heads of their enemies, while others will use their powers to leap great distances, or, in fact, move through a form of wormhole, as it would be called. The ability to bend reality with their mind, and their desire to ascend to be the supreme race, led to a great war between the Rusus and the Dwemhar. Ultimately, Dwemhar learned the ability to harness crystal powers, using both lunar light and that of starlight, and focusing it into weapons that the elves and dwarves simply could not fight. Even the race of men, when they first found the Dwemhar flying above them in their Akan flying ships, thought them as gods. But the Rusus knew better. Period. They did not trust the Dwemhar. And though they did try to offer peace and some type of compromise, the Dwemhar of the time would not have it, and wars broke out. Now, the Rusus were not to simply be rolled over and fought into submission. And when the Dwemhar saw that fighting person to person was going to lead to a long and exhausting war, they pulled their resources of all their many great cities together and crafted great flying ships. These flying ships were capable of completely leveling Rusus cities. And so the Rusus, with their mastering of elements, began to focus on creating weapons that were different, weapons that were terrible. Now, at this point of the books themselves, the Rusus and Dwemhar are very rare. While there are quite a few half Rususes and pockets of Rusus that exist, they are nothing like they were in the early times of their history. That said, they're still faring better than the Dwemhar. For the Dwemhar descended to such a point that the gods themselves had to do something. Though that particular bit of the history is a bit cloudy, as it's not sure to the peoples of the Dwemhar realms if the Dwemhar simply ascended and left, becoming more than any other race in existence, or if they were destroyed, for a massive flood overtook all the lands that the Dwemhar called home. Now I'm going to stop here for today and let you know that our next video will cover the Strantavere. The Strantavere are directly tied to the Stormborn Saga series, and Valrin and the crew of the Ayla Sunrise, a realm ship of the Strantavere.